All right, cool. So I wanted to talk about the DAPL ruling, because that was one of the first things that I actually got really involved in when
Mhm.
I first became an activist, when I first moved back from Spain in 2016.
And DAPL
Was
stands for
DAPL
Dakota.
is
Dakota.
the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Right.
So this was back in 2016, and this was under our dear Obama. uh, they went and they were trying to build this pipeline through, sacred land. And there was this massive movement of people that came from really all across the world to, be in alliance and stand with the water protectors that were all they were doing was just trying to protect their land. And of course, these energy companies, they just decided that they were, they didn't care, and that they were going to, build this pipeline, even though obviously ever since then it has been proven to have leaked.
Yeah.
It's leaked hundreds of thousands of barrels
Yes.
of oil into this water for these people. And so obviously there was a reason for this fight. And it was, I think it was halted right before, I want to say maybe January
I,
2017, right before Obama left office is when
I,
he
I
like.
I think it's important to say that there were extreme measures taken against the protesters. There were like water cannons and freezing temperatures. There were rubber bullets. There were concussion grenades, or whatever you call it. Um, Tulsi was there as veterans
Mhm.
were active in protesting. So another horrific situation of things that Trump would get ripped apart for. Obama just gets a complete pass on. People will never bring that up,
Right.
except for crazies like
Right.
us.
I mean, he was quoted as saying that, he would just let things, fall as they may. We'll see how it goes. That
Right.
we'll see how it turns out. That's essentially how he treated it. And I wrote to Elizabeth Warren because, supposedly Elizabeth Warren is a person of color, maybe.
Supposedly.
Supposedly she's Native
Yeah.
American, and this was before she did
Yeah.
the test, right? The DNA test.
Right. Yeah.
I wrote to her to see, if she would come out and at least say something, and she didn't. She waited until Obama came out, and like I said, I think
She waited until it was
I want to
settled.
say end of December, beginning of January. That's when Obama, he put a halt to it. And then once Trump was in office, that was one of the first things that he decided to revoke, and he, renewed their license to be able to go and drill again.
Right.
So recently a federal judge ordered for DAPL to be shut down and for all the oil to be emptied out of the pipeline. So this was obviously a massive win for Native Americans and for indigenous people, especially because they have been the ones at the forefront of fighting a lot of these pipelines.
Yep.
And it's not just DAPL that's been stopped; it's also the Keystone XL pipeline and several other pipelines that have actually been halted recently. Now, the Secretary of Energy actually came out and said that he blamed this on protesters, right? And he said that the protesters are costing people's jobs, which obviously is very dangerous. I mean, to a certain extent, it's good that he gave them that he actually acknowledged the work of the protesters. That they actually have made a difference.
Right.
But you also have a lot of protesters that are facing federal prison charges, because they are seen as environmental terrorists by a lot of these groups.
Right.
And so that is very dangerous for him to say that. But I also think that the timing of this has a lot more to do with the fact that you have a lot of energy companies that are actually filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy right now, one of which was Chesapeake Energy, which is based out of Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. And this is like a long list of energy companies that are actually filing for bankruptcy because of the fact that we did have like the cost of oil went to like negative $35 a barrel a couple months ago, and they still haven't been able to recuperate, especially because travel has been down. Obviously, people are not going to work. Just the demand for energy is down, right? Demand for fossil fuels is down. So I think it has a little bit more to do with that, but also the fact that the protests obviously cost them money. So it's a double-edged sword for them, you know?
Right. Exactly. That's yeah. It's fantastic motivation for further protests. I would think that they finally, after all that, are successful. You know.
No, I just think, I mean,
Well,
it seems like we have like I don't know, we're in such a period of change right now, and
yeah.
obviously that's a good thing, but it's all tying in with climate change and renewable energy, right? And the demand for fossil fuels, and where is this all headed? Because obviously nature doesn't care. Nature just does what it does, right? So like if the world's going to keep getting warmer, or if if we keep stuff's gonna happen, whether people are gonna need energy one way or the other. The question is, can we make the shift to more renewable basis, and change our lifestyles so we're not totally dependent on you know fossil fuels and plastics and everything that it's how is that going to, like, we have to make this huge shift, and it's like, how is that going to be reflected politically? Like, we could have these little victories, like with the pipeline or whatever, but right now it's kind of like
That's not a little victory. That's a massive victory.
well, it's a massive victory, but in the big scheme of things, I'm just saying, like, it's important. But like, now everyone's talking about Biden versus Trump. I mean, that's really a false. It's like, to me, okay, yeah, I'd like to see Trump defeated, but it's not really going to make much difference. It's like, that's like 0.5% if at most. Like, there's this whole other area that needs to be changed, and where is it happening? I mean, I see these things emerging, but like,
and another big picture way I'm looking at this is that a big win for the Bush administration and then the Obama administration was essentially to give us fossil fuel independence, right? We're drilling the Arctic Shelf at fracking, and we've got offshore drilling and all this stuff. So we finally got to a place we would have, loved to have been at in the 70s, where we can produce basically all our own oil, and we're not dependent on other countries. But of course, the horrific negative effect of that now is there isn't the motivation to develop the other alternative energy sources. It's not as big a demand economically, even though we have crushing need for it environmentally. So it puts us in a really strange place that you'd love to think all the U.S. scientists, there's a big economic drive to perfect alternative.
but am I wrong?
But I think that has more to do with geopolitics than anything else, because if you look at other countries around the world, they are pushing for environmental legislation, and they are looking for renewable sources of energy. I mean, if you look at Germany is actually one of the countries that's leading in this. They have shut down all of their coal plants. Like at the same time, they are a bunch of neoliberals there too. So don't get me wrong. But the problem is that what we need to do is that we need to make it more financially viable or profitable for people or for companies to go into the renewable sector. Right now, because of the fact that we have so many subsidies that go into fossil fuels and fracking, that is essentially what drives why it is cheaper, essentially. And that is and they're incentivized, but it's also incentivized because of our political ties to Saudi Arabia and and all these other countries, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, I think we're saying partially saying the same thing, is that we want the economics to drive innovation, and you can have alternative energy jobs if those are subsidized, obviously that would be the direction we want to go. And we seem to be when you've got the Democrats being essentially, and Obama essentially celebrating being oil independent, it's kind of puts us in a horrific place.